Dear friends everywhere, it's once again with a heavy heart that I address you with regards to terrorism perpetrated by Muslim terrorists. The attacks in Paris are horrific, and I join with all my co-religionists, Muslim organizations, especially in the United States and Europe, in condemning these horrible acts. These are inhuman. These are acts against humanity and decency. They're also attacks against Islam and Islamic values and Islamic beliefs. If ISIS thinks that attacks like this are going to improve the condition of the Muslim world, then they are fundamentally wrong. Attacks like this will not only bring more misery to Muslims who live in those countries, like in France and in Europe, where they have to face the backlash as a consequence of such attacks, but these attacks will also hurt their own goals of establishing a state in Iraq and Syria, because now more and more countries are going to attack them, hopefully with much more vigor, much more focus, and much more concentration. I believe that it is important for all Muslims to not only condemn these attacks, but also challenge the fundamental geopolitical beliefs, theological beliefs in our community, which allows young Muslims to accept and buy the message of ISIS and then embark on such horrific activities. I also invite my Western colleagues, policymakers, and intellectuals to reflect on whether our policies against terrorism, whether our policies in the Middle East, whether our policies to fight radicalism, have they been successful? Are they reducing radicalism, or are they increasing radicalism? The French leader Allende decided to declare war against ISIS and against those in France who have helped ISIS. But is war a solution to problems that have been created by war itself? So it's very important for us to understand. For Muslims, I want to remind them that the Quran recommends that we crucify and banish those who spread terror, fasad fil earth, those who spread terror on earth. We are supposed to banish them and crucify them. It's in chapter 5, verse 33. It's important that Muslims themselves take an active stand against ISIS. Muslim countries like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt have to come forward and be more aggressive in undermining the achievements of terrorist groups like ISIS. Muslims everywhere are condemning this, and this is the good news. I hope the media recognizes this and recognizes that yes, there is a problem of radicalism in the Muslim community, but we also need to understand that a vast majority of Muslims condemn this and do not support what ISIS is doing. I also believe that it is also time for us to understand that the phenomena like ISIS is a consequence of very broad failures. It is the consequence of the failure of Muslims and Islamic thinkers to come to terms with modernity. It is the failure of the project of building a modern state in the Muslim world. We have artificial nation states. We have states which are authoritarian, which we have monarchies in this modern age. It is important for us to develop states which are modern, which can monopolize violence within their borders. We also need states which provide hope to their citizens, states which are democratic, which are inclusive, which are pluralistic. These values, we talk about it both in the West and in the Muslim world, but we need to institutionalize them in our state building apparatus. I also believe we need to address the challenges of poverty, of inequity, and also, more important, the discourse. The discourse on Islamophobia helps radicalize Muslims rather than helping them come to terms with the challenges in their own society. They become less willing to be open to reform and more willing to circle the wagons in the face of discursive assaults which demonize Islam and blame Islam for essentially a failure of geopolitics in the Muslim world, for which Muslim countries and Western countries both are equally responsible. From a human perspective, it is really saddening and frustrating to see so many lives lost for nothing. There's nothing good that is going to come out of the attacks in Beirut, where ISIS, day before yesterday, killed about 39 people and injured 100, or these attacks in Paris, where nearly 130 people have been killed, nearly 300 people injured, 99 of them are serious. ISIS is supposedly also shot down the jetliner in Egypt, which has killed over 200 people. Add to this sectarian violence in the Muslim world, add to this anti-Westernism, anti-Americanism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. As human beings, we seem to be going through the worst phase in our civilizational development. It is important for people of good faith, religious leaders, community leaders, opinion makers to come forward and push aggressively that we live on this one tiny little planet. To use the cliche, we live in a global village, and it's important for us to not only understand each other, but respect our differences and try to live in a world where we begin to respect each other and try to resolve our differences more through dialogue than war or terrorism. I hope that this tragedy in Paris comes as a wake up call for everybody to try and be more sympathetic, more empathetic towards each other. Thank you very much.